The statement released by NASA was precise, emotionless, almost too perfect, all systems nominal. Crew safe. Mission successful. But history has taught us that the most carefully chosen words often hide the most disturbing truths. Because beyond the glowing blue comfort of Earth, beyond the familiar face of the Moon, Artemis II crossed into a region humanity has technically seen, but never truly understood. And what it encountered there was not just unexpected, it was deeply unsettling. The mission itself was meant to be a milestone, not a mystery. Artemis II was designed as a crewed test flight, a symbolic return of humans to deep space after decades since Apollo 17. The plan was simple: orbit the Moon, test systems, and return safely. No landing, no exploration, just validation. The astronauts were among the most rigorously trained individuals on Earth, prepared for isolation, for danger, for the cold silence of space. But no training simulation could replicate the moment when Earth disappears completely, when the spacecraft slips behind the Moon, and all communication with humanity is severed. This communication blackout is normal. It has always been part of lunar missions. The Moon physically blocks radio signals, creating a period of total silence. But during Artemis II, that silence was described not as empty, but as heavy. As the spacecraft crossed into the far side, instruments began registering something unusual, a drop in ambient electromagnetic noise, as if the natural background of space itself had dimmed. Inside the capsule, even the astronauts felt it, not physically, but psychologically. The silence wasn't just around them. It felt like it was pressing in. Then came the first visual anomaly. As the spacecraft glided over the rugged terrain of the Moon's far side, an area marked by deep craters and chaotic formations, the onboard cameras captured a shadow that didn't belong. It wasn't cast by any mountain or crater wall. It was too straight, too defined. A long, angular darkness stretched unnaturally across uneven ground, ignoring the position of the sun entirely. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, it moved. Not like a shifting shadow caused by orbit, but like something deliberate. Something casting it. Moments later, the spacecraft systems began behaving, strangely. Not failing, not shutting down, but subtly drifting out of alignment. Navigation systems briefly lost their lock on stars. Thermal sensors recorded pockets of extreme cold that didn't match expected lunar conditions. Radiation levels spiked and vanished without explanation. It was as if reality itself had slipped slightly out of sync. Everything still worked, but nothing felt entirely correct. Then the radar picked up something that changed everything. Artemis II carried advanced ground-penetrating instruments capable of scanning beneath the Moon's surface. Initially, it detected what seemed like a dense anomaly deep below. But as the data refined, patterns began to emerge: lines, angles, symmetry. These were not natural formations. They resembled structure. Intentional design. Something buried beneath the lunar crust, vast in scale and unmistakably artificial. It wasn't just a small object or debris, it spanned kilometers. Layered. Organized. Engineered. Before the crew could fully process this discovery, a signal appeared. It didn't come from Earth. It didn't come from any satellite. It came from below them. At first, it was a low-frequency pulse, almost like a heartbeat. Then it began to evolve. The pattern shifted, becoming more complex, more structured. The onboard systems attempted to interpret it, but failed to categorize it as any known form of communication. And then something even more disturbing happened: the signal began interacting with the spacecraft itself. Screens flickered. Data streams glitched. For a brief moment, every display aboard Artemis II showed the same thing: a set of coordinates. They weren't lunar. They weren't terrestrial. They pointed somewhere else entirely. Driven by instinct, or perhaps something harder to explain, the crew initiated a high-resolution visual scan of the area below. What they saw has never been publicly acknowledged. A formation, partially embedded in the lunar surface, came into view. It wasn't massive, but it didn't need to be. Its geometry alone was enough to defy explanation. Smooth surfaces. Perfect edges. No erosion, no signs of age in the way natural objects degrade. And most unsettling of all, it reflected light in a way that didn't behave like any known material. It didn't shine. It didn't absorb. It seemed to distort. Looking at it created a strange visual tension, as if the human brain couldn't fully process what the eyes were seeing. And then, impossibly, its position appeared to shift, not by moving across the surface, but by altering its relation to space itself. As if the rules of distance and perspective had momentarily changed around it. When the crew later reviewed mission logs, they discovered something even more chilling. A gap in time. What they experienced as a short observation window, barely over 10 minutes, was recorded by onboard systems as nearly 20. There was no blackout, no loss of consciousness, no missing memories. And yet, 7 minutes had vanished. Or perhaps, been taken. As Artemis II completed its pass and emerged from behind the moon, communication with Earth returned instantly. Mission Control resumed contact, unaware, or perhaps unwilling to acknowledge, that anything unusual had occurred. The crew responded as expected. Calm. Controlled. Professional. All systems nominal, they said. No anomalies to report. But the hesitation in their voices, subtle yet present, suggested something else. A decision had been made in those silent moments, to keep what they saw contained. After the mission, official reports cited minor data corruption during the Farside Pass. Nothing significant. Nothing concerning. But fragments of the telemetry remained, enough for analysts to realize that something extraordinary had occurred. The patterns detected beneath the moon's surface were real. The signal had been recorded. And the time discrepancy could not be explained. Since then, theories have begun to circulate quietly within scientific circles. Some suggest the presence of an ancient structure, older than humanity, hidden beneath the moon's crust for millions of years. Others believe it may not be a structure in the conventional sense, but a form of technology, something that doesn't follow human definitions of machinery or architecture. A few go further, proposing that the moon itself may not be entirely natural, that parts of it could have been altered, constructed, or repurposed for reasons unknown. But perhaps the most disturbing possibility isn't what Artemis II found. It's that whatever is there, responded. Because long after the mission ended, a faint signal was detected again. Similar frequency. Similar pattern. But this time, it didn't come from the moon. It came from deep space. Weak, distant, but unmistakably connected. And within it, the same coordinates. The Artemis program continues. Artemis III is already being prepared, with plans to land humans on the moon once more. Officially, the mission will target the lunar South Pole, far from where Artemis II made its discovery. But space missions evolve. Objectives shift. Curiosity pushes boundaries. And if Artemis II only glimpsed something hidden in the dark, then the next mission might bring humanity face to face with it. Because the real fear isn't that we discovered something on the moon's far side. It's that, in that moment of silence, cut off from Earth, surrounded by darkness, something discovered us back.